All right, we're going to look at the Unit 5 review, proportional and non-proportional functions. Number 1, a dolphin travels through water at a speed of 25 kilometers per hour. Which representation shows the distance a dolphin can travel at this rate? So right here, this was our rate times our x, so 25 per hour. There was nothing added to that. So I double checked all of these, and so let's look at D. It says 5 hours. The dolphin can travel 135 kilometers. All I did was multiply 5 times the rate of 25, and it was 125. So that was wrong. Here, they've mixed up our hours and our distance. If this would have been 1 down here, and that would have been 25 here, that would have worked. But this is not correct. It was 1 hour, 25 kilometers. B, the equation is incorrect. It's saying 1 kilometer per hour, and they're adding 25 at the end for no reason. So that one's wrong. And then here, all I did was multiply each of the times given by our rate of 25. And I found that all my y values for my distance matched up. So the correct one was A. Number 2, an artist is making a scale model of a statue. On the model, 2 inches represents 1 foot on the actual statue. So here I'm just looking for 2 inches on the model and 1 foot. So you can see I plotted my points here and they are not on the graph, so that one's not correct. Here I plotted them, and again, they're not on the graph. Looking at this one, I plotted them, they are on the graph. And then the other incorrect answer was this one here where they're plotted, not on the graph up here. So the correct answer was H. Number 3, the cost of 3 pounds of grapes is $6.57. What is the constant of proportionality that relates to the cost in dollars Y to the number of pounds of grapes X? So I just divided to find my unit rate, and I found that was 219. So my constant of proportionality is 2.19. Number 4, a store sells new video games for $55 each. Used video games sell for $12 each. Jacob is buying 3 new video games. So I found out that price here for 3 new video games and an unknown number of used video games. Which equation can be used to find the total price Jacob must pay in dollars? So this was he's for surely paying for those new ones 165. So I've added that. And we don't know how many used ones he's paying for, and that's $12 per used one. So this is our equation here, which lines up with G. Here they didn't take into account the 3. Here they've mixed up the new and the used, and they also didn't take into account the 3. And here they've mixed up, he's not buying 165 per used ones, it's 12 per used one. Number 5, a pilot takes a taxi from the airport to a hotel. The taxi driver charges a $2.50 initial charge plus $2.65 per mile. Which equation can be used to find y, the total cost of the trip, if x represents the number of miles in the trip? So this was a one-time fee, this initial charge. And then this is every single mile, we're getting a $2.65 charge. So per mile, that's $2.65. Our one-time charge of $2.50, and D was the correct equation that matched up with that. And all I've used is my y equals mx plus b, or my slope intercept. Number 6, on a field trip, there are 3 adults for every 45 students. Which graph models a relationship with the same unit rate? So all I'm looking here, and I noticed that all my x units, if you're looking here, have the same units. So I was looking for 45 on my x, and then 3 on my y for my adults. So 45 students, so 30 to 60, 45 is in the middle, and then 3 adults. That is not on the graph. The next one here, 45 students to 3 adults, again, not on the graph. The next one, 45 and 3, that is on the graph. And then 6 and 90 is on the graph. So we've got a good one there on H. And then look at the other one. J is definitely not going to line up with our scenario. So your correct answer on that was H. Number 7, a tree in Dante's neighborhood grew 18 inches in the first 2 years after it was planted. If the tree continues to grow at the same rate, which graph best represents the growth rate of the tree in inches per year? So I found out that 18 inches in 2 years was 9 inches in 1 year. And then I just looked at each of the graphs and plotted my 1 and my 2. A is not correct. I plot my 1 and my 2. That is on the graph, so that one does work. Here, in 2 years, that tree goes from 0 and it keeps going forever. I think that's not correct. Our growth rate should start at the origin. It should be 0 at the beginning of it being planted. And then this last one here, when I plotted, it's also not on the graph. So the correct answer was B. Number 8, which statement describes the mapping? So the first thing I looked at was my mapping, and I noticed that there was only one arrow coming out of each x value. So this is a function because x doesn't repeat. So I noticed right away that G and J said does not represent a function, does not represent. So that right there told me that G and J were not correct. Now F and H, I needed to figure out which one of those was correct. And it says the mapping represents y as a function of x because each y value corresponds to exactly one x value. This right here should have said x, and that should have, because x doesn't repeat. So when I went down to H, the mapping represents y as a function of x because each x value corresponds to exactly one y value. So H is the correct answer. Number 9, which set of ordered pairs represents y as a function of x? So again, x can't repeat. And so when I looked through my set of ordered pairs, I was just looking if x repeated, that couldn't work. So x repeat, so I'm identifying my repeats, and then I'm not going to choose that. My x repeats, can't choose it. And on A, we have 2, 4, 6, 8. X doesn't repeat. That does represent a function. Number 10, which graph represents y as a function of x? So I need to do a vertical line test. And if my pencil or pen ever touches the line, the graph, in more than one place, it is not a function. So right here, and I've identified that with my drawing, my pen is touching it 2 places, not a function. G, going across, my pen never touches that graph more than once. So that is a function. H, right here, that pen is touching that graph the entire way there. So that is x repeating, not a function. And then I've got a circle on my last graph. And as you can see, my pen will touch in more than one place there. It's touching in 2 places, not a function. So the only one that was a function is G. Number 11, the approximate volume in milliliters M for a volume of fluid, or F fluid ounces, is equal to 29.57 times the value of F. Which table represents this relationship? So I have my fluid ounces, I have 1, and then I just need to multiply that by 29.57 to get my milliliters, so it's 29.57. And then I look to see what 2 fluid ounces would represent, and I just doubled that. And so now I'm looking for 1 fluid ounce to 29.57. And this is not going to work, either of those. They've got it backwards. And this started at 0. That's not correct. Here, they've put 0 fluid ounces at 29.57 milliliters instead of 1, so that's not correct. And here, D, 1 fluid ounce, 29.57 milliliters, and 2, 59.14, which matches up. So the correct answer is D. All right, number 12, a can of juice contains 175 calories per 2.5 servings. Which of the following is not an equivalent number of calories per serving? So first thing I did was I divided to figure out how much 1 serving would be. And I found that 1 serving is 70 calories. So I've got 1 serving, 70 calories. Once I know that, I can just multiply that 70 calories times the servings. So I found that 4 servings gives me 280 calories, so that works. 13 servings, that's here, 910 calories, that works. 70 calories times 8 servings is 560. There's 525, so that one is not an equivalent number. And then the last one, 9 servings, 70 calories times 9 servings, 630 calories, and that works. So H does not work in our equivalency there. 13, which table contains only corresponding x values and y values where the value of y is 3 more than the quotient of x and 2? So the first step is to build the equation. So I have the quotient of x and 2 right here, and then I have to add 3 more. So that's just adding 3 more. So once I have the equation built, then I've got to see which table works, and to do that, I just substitute these x values in here to my equation and find out which table matches. So all the tables have the same x values. So I've substituted 7 in for x, and I have 7 divided by 2 is 3.5 plus 3 is 6.5. So looking here, that doesn't work. This one works. That one doesn't work. And this one doesn't work. So the only one that works is B. I did check one more value. I substituted 10 in for x just to double check the second y value. And 10 divided by 2 is 5, plus 3 is 8, so that works. And if you continue on, you will find that all of those work for the table on B. Number 14, Rudolfo has 15 toys in his toy box, and he adds 2 new toys every month. Based on this information, which representation best shows this relationship between the number of toys Rudolfo has in his toy box, y, and the number of months that have passed, x? So he has this 15 already there, so I'm going to add that. That's my initial value, my initial amount. And then it's 2 per month that we're adding. So looking here, we started out with 15, so I should have a 0 and 15. So automatically I'm going to look at that table and say that doesn't work. Here, looking here, I have my y-intercept, my starting value of 15. And then we're adding 2 toys every month. And so one way to look at this is I have 5 months here. And if I put 2 times 5 is 10, plus 15 is 25, that works there. So far G looks good. Looking at H, 1 month in, I put here, that's 17, that works. But then when I go 4 months in for this X value here, I should have had 23 toys, and it's got Rudolfo having 68, so that one's not correct. And my last option here, 0 should have been at 15, so that would have been here, which automatically has that one not working as well. So the correct answer was G. All right, number 15. The initial value of y varies directly with x. When y equals 75, x equals 1/2. What is the value of y when x equals 2 1/4? So I've done this 2 different ways. And to kind of split this up here. So first I converted my fractions to decimals, and then I just set this up y over x equals y over x. And then I ended up solving for y. So I cross multiplied, and I ended up with 0.5 times y right there, and then my 75 times 2.25 is 168.75. And then I moved it over here so you could see my next step, where I isolate y by dividing by 0.5, divide by 0.5, and I get y equals 337.5. And 0.5 is equivalent to the fraction 1/2, so that's right here. And then the other way I worked this out, I do not recommend this unless you love working with fractions and you want to multiply and divide by fractions. So I've kept the fractions in my setup. I cross multiply. 1/2 times y is 1/2 y. Then I have 75 times 2 1/4. In 2 1/4, I have converted this to an improper fraction because when we're multiplying, remember your fractions cannot be mixed numbers. So 75 times 9/4, and I multiply across, 675 over 4, and when I divide that out, I get 168.75. So then I have to divide by 1/2, right? Which is the same thing as multiplying by 2. So I still get 337.5. But again, you're likely to do better converting this to decimals and doing your operations with decimals. And then B, 337 and 1/2, is your correct answer for 15. Number 16, Jessica skated 4 laps in 82 seconds. Which of the following is an equivalent rate of skating? So the first thing I found out was my unit rate, and she's going 20.5 seconds for 1 lap. Then I just needed to, and I only had 2 values here. I have 6 laps or 10 laps. They repeat. So for 6 laps, it's 123 seconds. And that didn't work and that didn't work. Then I needed to find out for 10 laps. And when we multiply by 10, make sure you remember when you multiply by 10, all you need to do is move that decimal point one place. This is it multiplied out though, if you want to see it that way. And we found that 10 laps is 205 seconds. And here I have 10 laps, 205 seconds. G is the correct answer. Number 17, which situation could not represent a proportional relationship? So remember, the proportional relationship goes to the origin, so I would have something like this. Non-proportional, I'm going to have an additional amount that I'm either adding or taking away. So the number of gallons of water in X barrels with 42 gallons of water in each barrel. So that's 42 per barrel. That's 42X. Then I have the amount an employee who makes $8.50 per hour earns in H hours. So there I have 850 times my hours. The weight in X weeks of a puppy that gains 2 pounds per week if its starting weight is 8 pounds. So I have 2, so its total weight is what we're talking about. So 2 pounds per week, but I have that 8 pounds that a puppy weighed initially. So that one does work for our y equals mx plus b. The cost of purchasing p pounds of bananas for 55 cents per pound. Again, I'm not adding any other values. So this is proportional. So C was the only one that represents a non-proportional relationship. 18, the graph models the linear relationship between the charge for a trip and the number of miles driven for 2 taxis. Based on the graph, which statement appears to be true? The first thing I recognized is they were all talking about 5 miles. So I located 5 miles on my graph here. And that's the point where these 2 taxis have the same values because they're intersecting there. So I noticed that the cost for 5 miles for both taxis is going to be $20. So now I'm just looking here to look at my scenarios. This one says is $5 greater for taxi 1. That's not true. Is $5 less for taxi 1? Again, not true. $20 for both. I found that to be true. And then the last one says the charge for a trip with a distance of 5 miles cannot be determined for either taxi 1 or taxi 2. That's not true. We can look right at the graph and see that. So H was the correct answer. The charge for a trip with a distance of 5 miles is $20 for both taxi 1 and taxi 2. 19, the 2 lines graphed on the coordinate grid each represent an equation. Which ordered pair represents a solution to both equations? So to find that solution, I'm looking to see where the 2 lines intersect, which is right here. And remember, your solution is going to be written as an ordered pair, x, then y. My x value where they intersect is -2. My y value is 1. So I'm looking for -2, 1, which is right here. B is the correct answer. Last one. Tuition for 1 year at a state university is about $13,000. Devin would like to attend this university and will save money each month for the next 4 years. His parents will give him $5,200 for his first year of tuition. Which plan shows the minimum amount of money Devin must save to have enough money to pay for his first year of tuition? So I have the first year is $13,000, and I subtracted the amount his parents are going to give him, and he needs to come up with $7,800. Then I've got to figure out per month for the next 4 years. So I divided by 4 to figure out per year. So he needs to come up with $1,950 per year. And then we have 12 months in a year, so I just needed to divide by 12 to figure out how much per month. And then I found, so I worked that all the way out. Each month he's got to save $162.50, which is G. Now you could also work this backwards and take the answer options and then multiply them out, either by 12 and 4 or by 48. Either way, you'll get the right answer. So that's a couple different ways to look at this. You can work backwards from the answers, or you can work it out like this.